Welcome back to Stories from the Road, a series where I talk about some of the experiences I had riding my bicycle from Detroit, Michigan to San Francisco. If you haven't seen the previous parts, don't worry. You don't need to necessarily have seen them to understand what I'm going to talk about today. Which brings me to the point where I'm not going to be doing a whole lot of talking today because the clips that I took of this part, I believe are sufficient enough to give you an idea of what's going on here. So with that being said, we're going to get into part 8. And in part 7, I leave off riding through New Mexico. I had just spent the night in Rama at a church, and it was a very creepy, spooky night where I was paranoid about mountain lions and skinwalkers and things of that nature. And I was heading towards Gallup, New Mexico. Now, I'm just going to sum this all up. I make it to Gallup, New Mexico. Nothing special going on in Gallup. I believe there's something called the Red Rock or something like that. It's like a big scenic landmark. Not a big deal to me for the business I was there for. So, after getting to Gallup, New Mexico, I hit the Arizona state line pretty quickly. So I just got into Arizona and about 160 miles from Flagstaff, which is going to be the next and last major city for a long time, as far as I can tell, because after Flagstaff is the Mojave Desert. Many people have been warning me about it, and I checked it out on the map, and it's going to be challenging for sure, but I don't think it's impossible. I really don't. Aside from that, I'm 45 miles away from the Petrified Forest National Park, so I'm pretty excited to see that. And besides that, I'm just out here in the Wild West, man. It is wild. It is open. It is beautiful, and it is dangerous. So I got to take all the precautions necessary to keep me safe. And that's all I can do, because forward is really the only option. There is no backwards. There is no backwards anymore. I guess I've long been to the point where you're better off to keep going forward. I think I'm like 700 and some odd miles from Santa Monica Pier, so I'm really closing in on the end of this, but I got to get through hell to get to paradise, and I'm gonna do whatever it takes to make it to the end of this, finish this thing out. The first place that I stayed in Arizona was a creepy hotel out in the middle of the desert, literally with nothing anywhere near it. I'm pretty sure it was at least 20 some miles in either direction of anything being anywhere close to it. It was spooky, it smelled bad, and it was pretty much really my only option. So I stayed at this Days Inn. So I'm in Chambers, Arizona, and I'm just pretty much stuck in the middle of nowhere. 50 miles from where I came from today and 50 miles to the next town. And I gotta stay at the mustiest hotel that I have ever fucking seen. But it's all that's out here. The only thing out here is this hotel, a restaurant, and a gas station. That's it, right off the freeway. Oh yeah, and the gas station doesn't take cash, or only takes cash, and I didn't stop at the ATM before I left Gallup. So I'm waiting for this restaurant to open up at 5, and all I can buy is fucking Pop-Tarts because all I have is fucking change. So, I mean, I guess it's better than there being nothing, but, and you know, I don't really think I would have been able to go the 50 miles through the Petrified Forest and beyond to get to Holbrook. So this is it. This is literally it. I'm literally just sitting in this room because there's nothing I can do. There's nothing out here. There's no one out here. So that's it. The next day I woke up from that Days Inn, and this is really the meat and potatoes of this story, of this part, which is the Petrified Forest National Park, or the Petrified National Forest. I'm not exactly sure what it's called right now, but you'll see in the video the sign. And I'm just gonna let those clips speak for themselves. So I just knocked out 22 miles on the shoulder of the interstate, and I'm here at the Petrified Forest National Park. It's gonna be a nice break from just riding in nothingness. I'm pretty excited to see what it's gonna look like. I'm only a few more miles from the visitor center of the south end of the Painted Desert, Petrified Forest. And it really doesn't seem like it's that hot when I'm just riding. But the moment you stop is when you realize how hot it really is. And that's the thing about this dry heat. It was like this in Texas and parts of New Mexico before I got into the mountains. It's really cold in the morning. And if you're out here all day, the heat comes on so gradually that you don't really notice how hot it's getting until it's too hot. And you know, you're feeling the effects of being out in the hot sun all day. So I've just been squirting my head down periodically. I'm not dehydrated in any sense of anyone's imagination here. You know, I'm drinking a lot of water, but it doesn't matter. It's almost better to, you know, right now to put the water on my head, because what happens is the sweat, it's like I'm bone dry. And it's not that I'm not sweating, it's that the sweat evaporates almost instantly out here in the sun, in the dryness. But other than that, you know, I stopped for shade just a little while back. I can no longer count on one hand how many times I've been out in dangerous heat and felt, you know, the beginning stages of overheating. It's all just a part of this thing at this point. In Oklahoma, it was the humidity. Gotta watch out for rattlesnakes off the side of the road. In Oklahoma, it was the humidity. In Texas, it was dry heat like this, and I just gotta chill. Ride slow. Breathe deeply. Remain calm. There's actually no heat advisory in effect right now, so a lot of it is mental. Your mind telling you to stop. Telling you to stop, telling you to take a break. That's not an option right now. I have to make it to the visitor center. There, I'll find air conditioning, I'll find shade, and I'll find nourishment. But until then, I have to continue to ride through this slowly. The sun is about as high as it gets, so that's it. Man, if it wasn't for the grass, it would look like I'm on the surface of Mars right now. It's like not even being on Earth. So I decided to stay in camp at the Petrified National Forest, and the lady told me I couldn't bring my bike, so I got everything in my backpack. It's gonna be a nightmare to put everything back, but it's my only option because you can't even bring a bike down there anyways. So we're gonna see how this goes. So I'm hiking out to find a spot. I already fell down some dirt. This really is some of the most inhospitable terrain that I've ever had to camp in. So I'm not gonna get too far from the road. Right now I can see a vehicle. There's other people who are gonna be camping out here and their vehicle's parked up there, so I have a landmark to get back. And other than that, I'm just hoping for the best. I had to literally unpack my shit and put it all into this backpack. I really didn't want to have to do that because it's going to be a pain in the ass to mess with in the morning. But, I mean, I had no choice. I'm thinking that, first of all, I don't want to get too far from where I put my bike. And second of all, I'm thinking that camping where somebody else has already camped is probably going to be my best bet. And I'm going to stay out of little areas like this because, I mean, it doesn't have to rain to end up being a flash flood. Flash floods can be caused by water that comes from somewhere else, so I don't want to camp in a wash. I like to be kind of high up if I could, somewhere that's going to be in the shade during the evening. Maybe right over there. I'll go check that out. And then I'm always going to keep in mind where I came from. And that's really all I can do, you know? I came from the north. There's the sun setting in the west. So, just gotta remember that. I'm heading due south. Right here we got a nice big petrified log. And as you can listen, it sounds more like stone than wood. Well, this very well may be my spot for tonight. The road is over there. I'm far enough away where it's not bothering me. And I really just do not feel like I have to go to the edge of the earth to be satisfied camping out here in the desert. It's not much, but it's a free place to sleep. Well, I decided to move over just a tad bit because it's a little bit flatter right here. We got some clouds rolling in and a little rainbow over there, but just the edge of the rainbow. I hope that doesn't mean rain is coming, because I've seemed to have brought rain everywhere that I've gone. So another thing, man, it's just hard to find good flat ground to camp on. You know, you can go camp down there, but that's just all wash. You know, and maybe it gets flatter if you go out there, but I think that might just be an illusion, to be completely honest with you. Because once you go over there, it's actually hilly, but you can just see the tops of the hills that's grass, and it looks like it's flat. And like I said, I don't need to go to the edge of the earth. The road's right over there. You know, I'll be fine for tonight. So, this is pretty much it for the night. It ain't much. I'm watching these dark looking clouds move across the sky over there, so I haven't gotten everything out yet. I could have brought my bike if I needed to. got my shit in the backpack. It kind of just goes to show that I can pack up what I need in my backpack and leave my bike if I have to. Besides that, I'm just waiting here for the sun to set. Hopefully those clouds move through and I'm able to enjoy the dark sky tonight. I guess the sky here is supposed to be beautiful at night, so that's about it. I'll tell you what, it hasn't even gotten dark or anything, but it gets extremely quiet, like almost silent. I can hear an airplane right now, and you know, the wind kind of makes some noise moving across your ears, but beyond that, it's like ear-ringing silence. It's very strange, it's something I'm not used to. Well, it may not be much, but it slept me in multiple different conditions so far. I think it'll suffice for tonight. Those clouds are scaring me. I can't tell if it's rain or if it's not, if it's coming towards me or if it's not. But all I know is that it wasn't cloudy all day. Now all of a sudden that I want to camp, we got clouds moving in. I'm having flashbacks to the Grand Mar, or Grand Mare. I don't know how it's pronounced, but I'm having flashbacks. So it's 7 o'clock. The sun is set in the desert. And to me, it's 8 o'clock because I just crossed over a time zone. But I'm just laying here. Just had a couple snacks. Hopefully I can get comfortable. And hopefully I can sleep well here. And then I was also just brainstorming ideas of utilizing this backpack and actually having my sleeping gear in that backpack and strapping the backpack onto the top of the rack. And then I could just have, you know, my sleeping gear ready to go in a backpack, and I don't have to dig through anything. All I have to do is unstrap the backpack from the rack, and boom, I got my bivvy, my poncho liner, and my hoodie, and even my tarp. I can throw the tarp in there. And then just have my mat, just put my mat back on there horizontally. Because really the aerodynamics is not a factor, because the bags come out wider than the mat if the mat was on there horizontally. So it really wouldn't create much more drag. But other than that, you know, I'm hoping that there's no predators out here. and I don't get preyed on. And other than that, that's about it right now. There's other people camping out here, so I have a little false sense of security, I suppose. I just hope that it doesn't rain. That's probably one of the worst things that can happen right now, is if it rained. So it's currently about 10 after 5, and I just opened my eyes and I slept pretty good. After I fell asleep at whatever time that may have been, I did not open my eyes until now. And the sun is gonna come up quick here, so I'm gonna get my shit packed up, move on over to the visitor center and rearrange all my shit, and head into Holbrook. Leave no trace. I don't think anyone will ever think that someone camped right here on the side of this hill, man. So I made a little change to the way I'm doing this, and I got my mat horizontal, and I got my backpack filled with my bivvy, my poncho liners in there, and I just got it strapped on. And you know what? It'll work for now until I, have a chance to get somewhere where I can rearrange it, or I might keep it that way, who knows. So it was 5:40 a.m. I was smart this time, and I prepared for the lack of being able to get some coffee. So cheers to a new day. Survived a night in the desert. So it ain't even 6 o'clock and the sun is already coming up. It's, I can see fine out here, bright, not even 6 o'clock. And another thing is that it really didn't get cold last night like I thought it was going to. I'm still surprised at how well I slept. I mean, you don't need a tent in the desert. You really don't. What's the point of your tent? You can get a little privacy, I suppose, but at the end of the day, you can check the forecast. You know if it's gonna rain or not, and the answer is probably no. And there was a few mosquitoes, not gonna lie. There was a few mosquitoes. Surprised me, but besides that, it's not like being in the forest where there's a lot of moisture, there's a lot of flying insects, there's a lot of bugs. There's bugs out here, don't get me wrong, but not where I was, I was on dirt that looks like it hadn't seen moisture in a very long time. Looks like someone's coming in the park, and I'm on my way out. It's kind of a good feeling. I kind of feel accomplished right now, not gonna lie. After the Petrified Forest National Park, I roll into Holbrook that morning. I have my coffee, and the ride was to Winslow, Arizona. I was standing on a corner down in Winslow, Arizona. Yes, that Winslow. I was at that fucking corner. But the journey to get to that corner was fucking insane. There's two different options you can take. You can take the shoulder of I-40, or you can take this road, which is 17 and a half miles long. It's a gravel road through open range, and there is absolutely nothing out there. I chose to take the alternative, the dirt road. So I decided to take the alternative route from Holbrook to Winslow. And it is, I think, about 17.5 miles of dirt road. Out here in open range. And you know what? I'd be lying if I said it wasn't rough. But in my opinion, it sure beats riding alongside the interstate. This territorial road here, out here, this is some of the strangest country that I've rode through so far. This is no man's land for real. I mean, you gotta be fucking absolutely nuts to live out here. And the only people that live out here are ranchers. And there's hardly any ranches. But I'm glad that I'm getting the opportunity to experience this, because this is absolutely just straight up weird being out here. I don't even have a landmark to fix my eyes on, you know? I'm just going. No man's land, Arizona, folks. There is the pavement. Things are getting kind of intense out here. Not gonna lie. Very happy to be off this stretch of unpaved road. So just when it was getting to the point where I could hardly bear it, and the only thing that was keeping me going was focusing on my breath, out of nowhere came this picnic area, and there's a river, and I was able to, I'm able to sit under this awning for a little bit, and I was able to soak my shirt in the water and my hat, and it's keeping me cool, and I feel like I'm no longer in danger of overeating. And I'm about 6 miles from Winslow, so I'm gonna hang out here for a little bit longer, and then I'm gonna head into Winslow. Made it to Winslow. That is 2 days in a row in the Petrified Forest and on that road on my way to Winslow, where I was suffering from some amount of heat stress, Luckily, no heat exhaustion, but it was, I was overheating. Now, like I said, this happened to me more times than I can count. I don't know if that's bad for you, if there's any long-term effects, but I guess I'll just have to figure that out for myself as time goes on. But, I was riding through the desert, and you can see Route 66 goes through the desert. The reason it goes through the desert is because the alternative is either, if you were to go south, worse, more desert, or if you were to go north, there's mountains. And it would be nearly impossible to get through the mountains, considering Route 66 didn't just pop up out of nowhere as a road whenever the heyday of Route 66 was. Before Route 66 was a road, I believe, you may want to check me on this one, but I believe it was a rail line. That's where the railroad went through. And before the railroad, that is wagon trails. People were going through these areas literally on wagons that were pulled by horses. A lot of people died. But the alternative was not getting across that desert to California, to the West Coast, because you can't take a horse and buggy through the mountains where there's no road. So that's why this route that I took, and many people for hundreds, possibly thousands of years, have been traveling through these deserts to get across the United States to the West Coast. So I don't even really remember where I was going with that, but that was one of the things in the back of my mind whenever I would feel, like I was getting incredibly hot, or my ass was hurting from my bike seat or whatever. I just remembered that there has been people who have been going through this, who have gone through the same thing that I have, not on a bike, but think about the people who were riding horses for 8 to 10 hours a day, days at a time, in that beating, the heat beating down on them constantly. So something about knowing that it was a path that was traveled by a lot of people before me, that is something I could say about Route 66 is there's a spirit to that particular pathway, It's a feeling that you don't get when when I was traveling up and down the, Pacific Coast Highway, Highway 1, or when I got into California, when I got off Route 66, when I was in Missouri, when I was on the Katy Trail, even going across Michigan, you don't get that same feeling that you do on Route 66 because of the notoriety of the route itself. But anyways, I make it into Winslow that day. I get a terrible night's sleep. I ended up talking to, there was a cart guy at the grocery store in Winslow, and he saw my stuff and he took interest in, he's like, are you traveling by bike? And I was like, yeah. He's like, well, how long have you've been traveling and stuff? And he was really interested. I told him my story, and then he's like, well, you could camp here, here, or here. Personally, I chose something different, and it was a bad idea. The camp spot was absolutely terrible. And following that terrible night's sleep was another tremendously difficult day, where the video footage that I took for that, I remember being on the side of the road thinking, I'm going to take this video right now just for myself, just in case I ever want to do this again, so I can remember the realities of it, because in my memories, it's definitely romanticized. I definitely overstate the good times, in my mind at least. It was, like I said, it was one of the hardest things that I've ever done, possibly the hardest thing that I've ever done in my life. So I slept like shit at the Church of Latter-day Saints in Winslow. I'm in Winslow right now, and I am headed towards Flagstaff. It's about 7 a.m. It's going to be hot here today, but it looks like it's going to be about 10 degrees cooler in Flagstaff, so that might be my saving grace. But nonetheless, I want to get the fuck out of here. I just want to record what's going on right now. I'm on the shoulder of I-40, headed from Winslow to Flagstaff. I got very poor sleep last night. Most of this route is uphill. I have a headwind going on, and it's a 58-mile day. 33 miles to Flagstaff. I'm about 20 miles deep. 20 miles on the shoulder of I-40. Still quite a few more to go here on this interstate shoulder. These are the days that separate the men from the people who don't really want it. Because I dare you to get out here and do this. There ain't nothing fun about days like this. Days like this, harder than any shift I've ever worked at any job, and I ain't getting paid. So, wish me luck trying to make it to Flagstaff. So, that's where I'm gonna leave off with this one, with part 8, trying to keep it short. There's nothing insane going on there, but when we get into part 9 here, is gonna be me arriving in Flagstaff, Arizona. And I have nothing but great things to say about Flagstaff, Arizona. I ended up staying there for quite some time. It was, I would have to say, if I had to choose a #1 city across the country, it would be Flagstaff. If you want to find out what happens in Flagstaff, Arizona, which you do, trust me, stay tuned for the next edition of Stories from the Road. And until then, I'll see you next time.